Namaskar. This is the question I'm going to discuss with you today. And first of all, I'd be very glad to interact with you, and I'm glad to welcome you all. Now, let me discuss few things before going into the answer. I'm trying my level best to cover your syllabus reasonably because we have to fix our priority, and the priority is to be fixed according to the guesswork. What I am thinking important to be asked in the years ahead in your question paper, I will frame the question accordingly. Along with that, I will try my level best to give the answer in little detail. Detail because you never know from which aspect of the question a new question can be framed. So, converting the detail into a crispy answer is not a difficult thing if I am here to discuss with it. But if you are knowing the things in a very concise manner and you cannot make the detail out of it, then it can cause a concern when you are dealing with the question which is based upon the micro side of a macro issue. That's why I'm trying my level best to give the answer, if possible, then in detail. Not every time, but sometime if the topic demands, like this one. This topic demands little extra. That is why my answer has occupied some reasonable length, although I can frame it in a very concise manner, in a very crispy manner. First of all, let me introduce your question. Evaluate the role of foreign accounts. First keyword of the question is foreign accounts. This is the subject of the question. Evaluate the role of foreign accounts as a source of ancient Indian history. If you read history, this is the way you read: facts, logic, and conclusion. And from where you receive the facts, you have the sources. And sources can be classified into two categories: archaeological and literary. Here in this question, we are supposed to deal with the literary source. Literary sources can be classified into two categories: domestic as well as foreign accounts. In this question, we will deal with this foreign accounts. So, you need to give this classification in your answer, but no detail is required. If you are giving detail in the answer which is not required, then you are on a wrong track. But if you are not giving the classification, then you are beginning the grass without the ground. So, first of all, you give a very crispy classification, then you go to the answer. Now, if you are writing ancient India, you need sources, and foreign accounts is one of the important source of history writing. But here is the evaluation of the role. It means sources are many. If you give the description of all the foreign accounts and you stop your answer, then you have not done the proper justice, because question maker is asking you to evaluate. What is the meaning of evaluation? You have to put the weight to what extent this source is important. Not always you can decide the extent in form of numericals, but in words you have to show the examiner that you are trying to evaluate. Now, let me go to the next point. First of all, you have to understand that the foreign accounts are Greek, the Roman, Chinese, and the Arab. Along with that, you can put so many other sources as well, like Sinhalese or Tibetan. Not necessarily I am going to cover everything, but you can cover. And second thing is this: if you are supposed to deal such a big gamut in one answer, then you cannot describe everything. Sometimes you have to mention the name and one or two line if that source is important to a particular aspect of history writing, then you give that one or two line. That's it. Every time you cannot go for the explanation. This is called management of the time during the answer writing, management of the words during the answer writing. You have to understand that only three types of the questions you are supposed to deal. 150 words for 10 marks. Here UPSC has mentioned it quite clearly. Another category is of the 15 marks and the third category of the 20 marks. Here UPSC has not given the word limit, but you have to understand it with the reason that if 150 for 10 marks, then 225 for 15 marks and 300 words for 20 marks. So in this question, you have to deal the answer in 300 words. 300 words is the highest extent. So you cannot write everything in your answer. What to mention, what to be explained is to be decided by your region. Now let me go to the first important source, Greek sources, Nearchus and Aristobulus, who were contemporary of Alexander, and they have given some very meaningful and important valuable information of that period. So they left valuable sources to know about the invasion of Alexander. Their account is particularly useful to develop chronological history. Indians were not particular about the chronology. They believed in Kalpa, in Yuga, or in Pal. Pal for the astrology and Yuga for the ethics, or Kalpa for the ethics. So either they dealt in terms of Kalp and Yuga, or they dealt in terms of Pal, but they never dealt in terms of Isbi, year, month. So historians were sort of some informations to decide the chronology of that period, but these foreign accounts gave them the information on account of which they can decide the chronology of the first 3 decades of the 4th century. Now, along with that, geographical discoveries. Alexander was dedicated to the geographical discoveries, and he came India with some prominent authors who gave all the details on account of which world came to know the intent of Alexander behind this expense. And along with that, their descriptions provided the historians an opportunity to construct history on account of these sources. So discoveries and some useful remark or some remarkable observations regarding Indian way of life during the period. During the period means during the period when Alexander came India. They have seen India with their naked eyes, and whatever they have seen in India or in the Indus region, they have given the descriptions of all these things. And as those books are not available at the primary source, as a primary source, but we know their observations on account of the quotations of the later authors like Justin and Plutarch. The books are lost, in fact. The accounts are available only in quotations of the later commentators like Justin and Plutarch. The third source is Megasthenes. Here I will not be going into detail of Megasthenes. I wish you would have read it. So the frame is like this. Basic about his account. Whatever he has written in Indica. Limitations and his utility. I think here I will have to be concised because I guess you must have read it. Roman sources like Pliny and Periplus of the Erythraean Sea. These are the prominent Roman sources on account of which we write history of the post-Mauryan period, particularly the economic history of that period. Their details regarding India. One special question is already asked by UPSC based upon Pliny. So this Periplus of the Erythraean Sea too can be asked. But this Periplus of the Erythraean Sea can be made the base of the question while covering the post-Mauryan period, not the first one. These are the parts of the micro history, but the topic 1 covers only the macro aspect. Supposingly, this Megasthenes too can be made the base of the question, but if you are covering the topic of Mauryas, not for the first topic. First topic will cover the simple line, foreign accounts. Up to the max, evaluate the role of the foreign accounts. If they'll go to the micro side, they will have to cover the topic in particular. So there are details regarding India. These sources are authenticated by the archaeological sources as well. Supposingly, if you read the details of Indian foreign trade dealt in Pliny's Natura Historica and the Periplus, you will be full of the information about the surplus trade of India. Pliny says that India is like a black hole where the coins goes, but only goods come. Their market was dumped by Indian products. Their household affairs too were dominated by Indian goods and Indian tastes. Pliny was worried about the fashion of their women and charging that the Indian goods are causing concern to their culture, to their ethics. Just like some Indians believe that the westernization of India is a concern to the Indian culture these days. That time, India was a threat to the Roman culture. As we have found the detail provided by Pliny in Natura Historica. The same kind of detail is provided by the Periplus. So many ports in India, the routes of the foreign trade, how India was connected with the Red Sea. So these are the informations we can get from these two sources. And if you go to the archaeological sources, you will find numerous of the coins coming from the Roman society. So the coins suggest that these two authors have provided us authentic information, reliable information. And on account of these sources, we can counter the idea of the dark age of some historians who initially concluded that the post-Mauryan period is the dark age of the in ancient Indian history. If India was prospering on front of the industry and trade and monetary revolution, and dozens of the ports which were engaged in the foreign trade, if India is enjoying this prosperity, how you can call this period as the period of Dark Age? So, on account of these sources, you can counter the idea of Dark Age. This is the significance of the source. So, here we are not giving only the information coming out of the sources. Along with that, we are saying that if these sources would not have been provided, then Dark Age, idea of the Dark Age would have survived. The idea of Dark Age is countered on account of the sources provided by Pliny and Periplus. So, the archaeological sources have authenticated. Number 2, the account is particularly useful to write economic history. And number 3, discuss the idea of Dark Age and counter it with the help of facts made available by these authors. Right? Now coming to the Chinese sources. Huaiyan, Wenshang, Yixing and Chaozhukua. These are the 4 Chinese travelers or writers who gave their detail regarding India, on account of which we can reconstruct our own history. Huaiyan, his details regarding the life during Gupta age. As he did not enjoy the court patronage, thus he is considered very reliable to write socio-cultural history in particular. He has given the detail of his voice. Whatever he has observed in India, he has written in detail, but his primary focus was on Indian society and Indian culture. Although there are so many passing remarks about the governance, about the security system, about the punishment system, about the judicial system, but primary focus is always on the society and culture. In culture particularly, he was focusing on dharma aspect, and in dharma particularly the Buddhist aspect. He can be compared with Huanshang, who enjoyed the royal patronage given by Harshavardhan. That's why some historians believe that he was writing in favor of Harshavardhan, but this charge cannot be labeled against Huaiyan, because he never ever enjoyed any royal patronage. He never went to the royal court. Rather, he has not even taken the name of the Gupta king of his age when he traveled to India. That's why historians said that his account is much more reliable. And what are the accounts you must be knowing? And I already made it clear that if you want any detail upon this particular individual's description, then it will belong to the Gupta period. This is a part of the micro history. Here only you have to introduce. The same thing, Wenshang, his books, Yuki, and the description regarding India, in short, in points, useful in constructing the history of Harshavardhan and his age, and vivid description of Nalanda is particularly worth mentioning. This is enough for this question's answer. And then show his limitations. Already I have given the limitation. He was eulogical to Harshavardhan, but still he can be considered one of the very useful source. This is the line of evaluation. If you are not having the source provided by Huanchuang, then the history of Harshavardhan will be very much in dark. You can eliminate the points of exaggeration, but you cannot deny the significance of this source, because if you are not having this source, then on account of what you can write the history of Harshavardhan. His Buddhist inclination, his contribution to the Nalanda University, his calling of the assemblies, his donations, his administrative innovations, his royal journeys, his literary interest, his cultural contributions, making of so many Buddhist monasteries, construction work, welfare work. You will not be knowing, and if you are not knowing these things about Harshvardhan, then you don't know the history of Harshvardhan. In fact, Harshvardhan cannot be considered one of the greatest kings of ancient India if you are not reading the sources provided by Yuan Chuang. This is the work of evaluation. Singh has given a description of 8th century India's society. Particularly, he describes the Sudras as the peasants. It means the Varna system was breaking. Chao Jokia has given detail about the judicial system of Chola. But in particular, if you have to choose one line in his description, then detailed description regarding the international trade of India, particularly the Malabar coast with China and Arab world. The detail of 12th and 13th century given by Chao Jukwa. So these are the sources. Now, the Arab sources. Suleiman, Al-Masudi and Al-Biruni. These are the three important figures who have given their detail regarding India. These two people gave their observations and passing remarks about India, but no detail is given. But Al-Masudi has given, Al-Biruni has given a very detailed description what he had witnessed in India in his book Kitab al-Hind. First two sources, means Suleiman and Al-Masudi, are important to construct the history of Pal, Pratihar and Rashtrakoot. But these sources are only the secondary sources because he has not given any detailed description. Here is the case of evaluation. That's why I said that supportive sources, not the primary sources. But as far as Al-Biruni is concerned, Al-Biruni left the most illustrated detail regarding India in his Kitab al-Hind. To give some description regarding Al-Biruni, I will discuss Al-Biruni by a separate question while discussing the early medieval age. Here, this question does not demand any detail about his description. But the format of this answer will be like this: detailed description in points, and then demark his limitations, and finally means not finally about Al-Biruni, but finally about this answer. Finally, we can say that these sources, means foreign accounts, are important in many ways. How? Sometimes they provide the details which are not available in other sources. You can understand the relevance and the significance of the source if they are providing you certain information which are never ever not having any other source. Then these sources are very, very significant. You can give the example of Megasthenes in some respect, or the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea in some respect, or the Pliny in some respect, or Biruni in some respect. Some information is given by Fahian also, like the condition of the Chandalas, particularly the condition, particularly the mention of Kaudiyaj. So many informations are given by so many people, particularly the chronological aspect of history writing. So here I have given only two informations, Megasthenes and Roman sources. Sometimes their accounts become important to examine the veracity of other sources. Means not the primary source they are having, or they are not the primary sources, but if there are some other sources, you can examine the veracity of those sources on account of the description given in the foreign accounts. The third thing, the account is their account is particularly important to write the chronology and social economic history. Chronology already I have discussed. Socio-economic history, because they were the travelers in general, and travelers have their own eyes. They see everything by their naked eyes, and then they write their own detailed account. They are giving details regarding those things which are generally left either by the literary or by the biographers or by the historians. And these things have become very significant for the present day historians because they are now inclined to write the socio-economic history. They are not that much interested in the politico-centric history. That is why foreign account becomes very important. They have particularly gave meaningful information regarding the life of common man. If society is going towards the plebeian class, that plebeian class wants to know their past. And if historian wants to write about the past of the plebeians, they need those sources which give any information regarding the common people. Foreign accounts is very important in that respect. Now, but we must notice certain lacunas like not being able to understand the intricacy of Indian society. Like Megasthenes discusses about the 7 castes. This is a classification of Indian society based upon the Egyptian society. He could not understand the intricacy of Indian society. And this lacuna is as real with Megasthenes as it is real with Al-Biruni. Every foreign traveler has this limitation. Megasthenes is just like an example. Other examples too can be cited. Greek accounts is particularly melodramatic. In fact, what was the fashion? Megasthenes was a Greek scholar. He came to India, wrote a description, and then he was used to narrate the story about his Indian experience. And if you are narrating the story in front of a crowd, you want to engage the crowd. And if you want to engage the crowd, you will be melodramatic. And second thing is this is not only melodramatic, rather the problem is this we have found his description through the secondary lane, means original book is left. So if you would have been in contact with the original book, maybe the book would have been more composed, more rational, more factually correct. But while narrating the story, you show some melodrama. After that, the listener will use some other dramas. And through this channel, the story moves from one hand to another, from another to another, from another to another. And now, after so many decades and after some time, few centuries, somebody is quoting you. This quotation can be full of melodrama. That is why some historians say that if you want to use Megasthenes, you have to classify it into 2 categories. One where he is very much melodramatic, that is not reliable, and second aspect where he looks rational as a scholar who was an ambassador. That is the part which can be used for the serious history writing. Their empirical evidence should not be used as the preponderant feature of pertinent age all the time. Foreign travelers came to India, they went through their own experiences, but their empirical experiences cannot be considered as the history of that age. Maybe that is the history of that particular region, or of that particular community, or of that particular individual, of that particular group. So we have to use these sources with caution, with the help of other sources. Thus, this should be used. Thus, this should be used with caution as a secondary source. As a secondary source, not as a primary source. This is again an attempt to evaluate. These are the terms on account of which you evaluate. This is all about today. Thank you. Bye-bye.